Welcome back, everybody. Now that we've seen how input molecules, energy-rich building block molecules, are brought from the digestive system to the cells via the circulatory system, it's time to talk about how the outputs, the cellular waste, are removed from the body. We have to distinguish two waste streams. Food that is not digested is eliminated from the body as feces, but metabolic waste produced by cells is excreted in the urine. Metabolic waste ends up in the blood as it diffuses across the cell membrane and then the capillary membranes. One of the most important wastes in the human system is urea, which is a somewhat toxic product of protein metabolism. The kidney is the organ that cleans the blood of the metabolic waste, and it does so by filtration and reabsorption. Let's look at the organs of the excretory system. So blood is filtered in the kidneys, which you can see here are a pair of organs that lie on the dorsal side of the human body. That's the back side. Urine is formed and collected in the kidneys and then passes through the ureters, these long tubes, to where it is stored in the bladder until it is excreted out through the urethra. Blood flows into the kidney in the renal artery. So you can see the red renal artery here brings blood into the kidney. Once it is inside the kidney, it is filtered. The filtrate is then modified through the reabsorption of useful molecules, including water, some salt, amino acids, and sugars. And what this leaves behind are waste products that go on to form the urine. And the urine then flows out of the kidneys through the ureters to the bladder. So how exactly does the kidney work? So within each kidney are millions of teeny filtering structures called nephrons. And here you can see a single nephron. And notice the anatomy of the kidney, with the outer section being called the cortex, the middle section being called the medulla, and the most central section being called the pelvis. And from the pelvis, we can see the ureter flowing out. So the nephron exists partly in the medulla and partly in the cortex. A network of capillaries called the glomerulus, which are inside a capsule-like structure of the nephron, which is called the Bowman's capsule, forces fluid from the blood into the capsule. So here's this capillary network called the glomerulus. Blood pressure forces fluid out into the nephron. Once the filtrate, the waste, is inside the Bowman's capsule, it is in the nephron. As the filtrate heads down the loop of Henle, and let's go back and look at that. Here it is. This long loop here is called the loop of Henle. So once it is inside the loop of Henle, substances such as water, amino acids, glucose, and some salts are absorbed back into the bloodstream. You can see that's happening here in number 2. That's called tubular resorption of what the body wants to keep. At the same time, some waste products in this vein, in this venule, now are secreted into the nephron, and that's called tubular secretion. So we have filtration, reabsorption, and secretion that team up to form the urine in the nephron. But there's more. In the medulla of the kidney, salt is excreted. So this is a very salty area, and it creates a concentration gradient of higher salt outside the nephron than inside the nephron. As filtrate moves through the loop of Henle, water leaves the nephron by osmosis and may eventually make its way back to the bloodstream. You can also see that sodium is going to leave if required to do so. There is also water absorption that occurs in the collecting tubules, which are the tubes that receive the waste product of many, many nephrons. So the kidney filters about 180 liters of blood a day. That's 45 gallons. This means that the 5 liters of blood that you have in your body are filtered 36 times per day. If you do the math, and I recommend you do, the blood is filtered on average once every 40 minutes. The total number of nephrons per kidney is 800,000 to 1.5 million, so that's a lot of nephrons. The amount of water that is reabsorbed by the kidney is controlled by hormones and also by ingested chemicals. There are chemicals that can make you reabsorb more water or reabsorb less water. And I'll let you think about the effect of caffeine on the absorption rate of water. The kidneys are key to the homeostasis in the blood and the extracellular fluid, that is the fluid around the cells. Without the kidneys, the proper osmotic balance could not be obtained, and your cells would live in a hostile environment and cease to function very quickly. So here's how the kidneys do it. One is they remove waste products from the blood, and then that is excreted in the urine. Two, they maintain what's called electrolyte balance. That's the dissolved salts. In other words, if you have a lot of salts in your blood and your interstitial fluid, you will not reabsorb it in the kidney, but instead it will leave in the urine. If you don't have many, salts in the urine will be reabsorbed. Similarly, pH is balanced and water is balanced. If you have exercised a lot and are dehydrated, your kidneys will form urine at a very small rate, maintaining water inside your body, reabsorbing huge amounts of water. And the kidneys also release hormones that do things like keep bones in good health, regulate blood pressure, and increase the production of red blood cells. So this is a very important organ. When the kidney fails to operate, waste builds up in the bloodstream, and you could see how that would be a problem. For example, you could have too much salt and your cells would start to dehydrate through osmosis. An imbalance of sodium-potassium can cause the heart muscle and other muscles to stop working, and it can affect nerve action. So when the kidney fails to operate, waste builds up quickly and you get to a very dangerous situation. You can only live a few days without kidneys. Chronic high blood pressure, which is known as hypertension, increases the risk of heart attack, stroke, and renal failure. So why is that? Well, high blood pressure itself can damage the arteries in the heart and thus make it more likely that a clot will form. They can make it more likely that blood vessels in the brain will burst and or clot, and therefore you'll have a stroke. And they can damage the arteries in the kidney and the glomerulus, and thus prevent the nephrons from functioning properly. So you can see that this regulation of blood pressure that the kidney is so important in is key to maintaining your health. And that's why low blood pressure is good, unless it gets too low. High blood pressure is often treated by medicines, and these are medicines that increase the rate at which fluid and salt are excreted from the body, and this will reduce blood pressure because there's less volume for the blood, and therefore there will be less pressure. Such medicines that increase the flow of water out of the body are called diuretics. Finally, here's a problem I leave you with. Each nephron filters about 0.09 milliliters of blood per day. So how many are needed to make the 180 liters of liquid that are filtered by the kidneys each day? Figure that out. So that's it for today. I hope you understand the anatomy of the excretory system, what the excretory system does, how urine is created in the nephrons by filtration, reabsorption, and secretion, and why the kidneys are so vital to maintaining our health. You have a lot to think about today, but when you're done, go outside, take a look at some cicadas, ask questions about them, bring them back to class, and I'll see you soon.